Welcome to week 2, Cooking International. Today we will show you some of the cooking of Italy. Now when you think of Italy, Italian cooking, you think of spaghetti, pizza, that's what first comes to your mind. But actually, Italy is divided into 20 regions. That's because from the fall of Rome in 476 to about 1861, we had about 20 independent states. And each one of those developed their own cooking. So we have different regions, like Tuscany, Naples, Rome, Florence, but everyone is sort of a different. So today we're just going to focus on a stuffed pasta called cannelloni. All right, now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make some crepe batter. So when you stuff cannelloni, you can stuff it with homemade pasta. You can buy the tubes already fixed, or else you can make crepes. Now I took a cooking class in Italy, and that's what they used. They used crepes as their tubes. So that's what we'll do today. Okay, the first thing we need to do is we'll start with the crepe batter first, because the crepes batter need just a few minutes to rest, okay? So what we start off with, I have 2 eggs and 2 cups of milk, actually 3/4 cups of milk and 1/4 cup of water. And then some flour, and we can just add the flour because this is pretty good. Okay. Now what we'll do, all right, we'll turn this on. So this isn't going to take very long. Now you could just put this in a bowl and whip it up by hand, and that'd work just as well, but might as well use a blender. All right. I see that is pretty smooth, and I'll pour it into here to give it a rest, give it time for the bubbles to settle down. So this is going to be our crepe batter. Now we'll let that rest for about 10 minutes. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the stuffing. But you notice I have everything laid out like this. The correct word is, in French, say mise en place. And I was able to take a few classes from the Culinary Institute, and every chef that taught us the class, that was the first thing that he did, mise en place. And that just means you need to get everything organized. So that's the worst thing you need to do, is think you're ready to go, and then you get halfway through the recipe and you find out something's missing. So you put everything in order, and it's all right to look at your recipe 2 or 3 times so you get a sort of general idea. Okay, so I've got this pan on sort of medium heat, and I'm going to use some olive oil. I just put olive oil in a squirt bottle, and that way I can just sort of add a little bit at a time. So now what we're going to do is that we're going to saute the garlic. So I have about 1/4 cup of onions and probably about 2 teaspoons full of garlic. Now we'll just put that on. Oh, you can smell that. You need smell-o-vision. Again, I just have this on medium heat because you don't want to get too hot, then the garlic burns. So you got to be very careful with garlic, because if it heats too much, garlic will burn and it gets very bitter. So I'm going to really turn this down. Do is just deglaze this just a little bit, and what I'm doing is see that little brown, those are particles, that's taste.
What did you pour in there?
I just put some water in there, and you could actually add a little bit of white wine. It's called deglazing the pan, just enough to get those really good particles. Okay, that looks pretty good, so we'll turn this off, and the next step is that we'll take our spinach. Now this is spinach that I just sauteed, all right? And then what I'm going to do is just sort of squeeze it, get the water out of it, get most of the moisture. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is that we're just going to chop this up very finely. Just a very fine chop. Remember, we hold our knife. We don't do this with our knives. We hold them like this. And then
Do that again.
just like this. That's how you hold the knife. And the reason we do this, the proper knife, is that we do forward. You don't, go down like this with your knife. So you just push it forward. That's the correct. And then we use what we call the claw. Remember, the claw is so that the knife rests. That way they won't call you three-finger Joe. Okay, so we're just going to chop this up. I'll just do that a couple times. Again, see the slicing motion? That's the correct way to use a knife. You just push forward. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is just mix all this together. So this was about 10 ounces. This is, believe it or not, a whole package of spinach. We just put that in there. Okay, the next thing I have is some ricotta cheese. Now this ricotta cheese is cheese that I made myself. Now, I'm not going to make that today, but I'll show you, or just tell you right now how easy this is. And it's going to you're going to find out it tastes just as good as store-bought. Take 8 cups of whole milk. If you look on the label, it'll say pasteurized, homogenized. That seems to work best. The ultra organic pasteurized doesn't seem to work. There's some of the enzyme to things, it just doesn't seem to work as well. Right? Then what you do, you heat it very slowly to 200 degrees. Then when it reaches 200 degrees, you turn off the heat. Then you add 5 tablespoons of distilled white vinegar and 3 to 4 teaspoons of salt. Give it a quick stir, and all you do is let that set about 10 minutes. Then after 10 minutes, you take a cheesecloth and a strainer and you pour everything into the strainer. You let that set for 7-8 minutes and you have ricotta cheese. That's how simple it is. We have about 8 ounces of ricotta cheese. Now I'm going to add the sauteed onions and garlic. And then the next thing we do, we just start mixing all this up. Okay. See, there's no right or wrong way to do this. Just mix it up.
Are you using a fork
I
there?
just got a fork right now. Okay, next thing we're going to do is add an egg, and that just sort of going to bind it together. Okay, it makes it. Okay, we just stir this up. Oh, this is looking fairly good. Okay, we've got spinach and ricotta cheese. Okay, now I got about a 1/4 ounce, about 1/4 cup of Parmesan grated cheese and a 1/4 cup shredded mozzarella. Okay, now again, we just mix that all up. See how easy that is? How it's coming together. Vinyl. Just use that. Okay, now what you get, the nice thing about this recipe, suppose you have a carnivore or somebody who really likes meat and somebody else really doesn't care for meat. Okay, so what we can do is that we can divide this in about, that looks like it's about half, all right? And to 1/2, we can add about 4 to 6 ounces of ground. This is just a hamburger I cooked yesterday. Okay, we just mix that through. So now you've got two different fillings. One filling is the vegetarian, and the next filling is the one that's got some meat in it. Okay, now we've let our crepe batter set. So the next thing we're going to do, let's go over the stove and make some crepes. So what we'll do is heat about medium, and it works best with crepes or pancakes. You really need a non-stick pan, and this is an 8-inch pan, and this will work pretty well.
Did you put butter in there or
No,
what?
I added some butter. I added some butter. Then we'll just let the butter melt. All right. Now, one thing about when you cook with butter, there's one way you can tell when it's time to add your food to the pan. And that's when you'll see there's a bunch of butter that melts, you get little bubbles. Then when those bubbles break, that means the pan is the right temperature. So I'll just spread this around.
Is that a silicone brush?
That's a silicone brush, yes. Okay, I got a few bubbles here, and it looks like they're just about ready to pop. Okay, usually the crepes, the first one doesn't turn out very well, but we'll just give it a try. And I just sort of eyeball this in. You want just enough to cover the bottom. And you sort of swirl it around. And it just you just sort of medium heat. Again, you just sort of, you see all the bubbles. And then when it's sort of a light tan, not yet, so you just sort of, when it's a light tan, then you know it's going to be, then you just flip it over. They're really quite simple. Now, a nice thing about crepes, you can use these as an entree. Again, like I say, we're going to stuff it with a pasta, with cheese, and you can stuff this with anything you want to. You can do a cheese filling. You could use tuna fish creamed filling. Yeah, that's perfect. And then for dessert, now if you're making a dessert crepe, you'd probably add about a teaspoon full of sugar to the batter before you start. But basically it's the same thing. And obviously for breakfast, you can fill these with any type of fruit that you want.
Or eggs?
Yep. All right. Okay, the next step is to make a bechamel sauce. Fancy name, but I guess bechamel sauce is just plain old white gravy. And if you put some sausage in it and a little bit more pepper, then you've got country gravy. So we start off by making a roux. And a roux is a mixture of equal parts of butter and flour. I'll turn that down real quick. So first thing we do is, this is very popular in New Orleans cooking. Now New Orleans cooking, you get various shades. Okay, that's pretty much melted. Now we just sort of sprinkle the flour over it. And we just combine them really. Now if this is New Orleans cooking, you would get this thing completely brown. Here we have just sort of a tan color. And we just sort of mix it up. You'll cook it just a little bit, and that's just to get the flour taste. That's all we're doing. You don't have to do this for about a couple of minutes. Again, you're just getting rid of the flour taste. So again, for this one I use 4 tablespoons of butter, 4 tablespoons of flour, and I'm using 2 cups of milk. Okay, the next thing we do, we take it off the heat. I might show you, this is my cutting board. Remember I showed you, I've got a rubber mat down here, anything would work, paper towel. That way it stops it from moving around. Okay, so I do like this. Now, we slowly, in stirring, add the milk. You stir it really quick. That's the secret, no lumps. Okay, now we put it back on the heat until that thickens. See, it's starting to thicken up. The secret of this is you just keep stirring. You keep stirring, then it won't burn on the bottom. As you can see, that's starting to get pretty thick. The one thing we haven't done is we can do this to taste. Just add a little pepper and a little salt. I always use kosher salt because it's easier to work with because you just do it with your hands. And believe it or not, this doesn't seem like you don't need as much kosher salt as you do the fine grain salt. If you're using fine grain salt, then you've got to use quite a bit more. Okay, that's pretty good. So, turn that off. Okay, now, the next thing we're going to do, let's put this all together, okay? Now let's assemble this. Okay, we'll start with the crepe. All right, and this some vegetarian ones. So it looks like you got about 2 nice teaspoons full there, okay, or tablespoons. Okay, you roll up like this, and you roll it up like this, and 1, 2. Okay, there's 1. All right, now we'll do 2. You know, these go really fast. 1, 2. Okay, we roll it up, fold, like an egg roll, if you've ever done egg rolls. 2. There's 2. Okay. 1, 2. You know, there's really no wrong way to do this. You can even do this first, cover it up like that, and roll it up. And there's number 3. And we'll do, we have room to do okay, now there's the vegetarian. Okay, now if you're a carnivore, okay, there's 1. There's 2. There's 3. That's 2. There's 3. Roll them up. Okay, we'll do 1 more. Do number 4. And about 2. Okay, let's roll them up. And roll them up. And there you have them. All right. Next thing we do is that, again, you can do a few more and use an 8 by 13, or this is an 8 by 8. Or what you could do is that you can make 2 or 3 small ones and then just put them in some of my small baking dishes. I have one that likes this. You can put a couple in there, then freeze it, and when you want to cook meal, just take it out. So that would also work. Okay, first step we do is that we just use some tomato And this is just old-fashioned Prego. Doesn't matter which kind you use. And you just put a little bit on the bottom. Okay? And we just coat that. Okay? So I'm going to do, I'll put all my vegetarian right here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, those are vegetarian. Now for the carnivores. 2, 3, and 4. Okay, now the next step is that we cover this with the bechamel sauce. Okay, you just spread it on. You know the right way to do this. Probably a rubber spatula would have worked better from this, but you know, spoon's okay also. Just to make sure it's all covered. Okay, that looks pretty well covered. And then the next thing we do is put just a little bit of cheese, not very much.
What kind of cheese?
This is Parmesan cheese. Then we'll put just a little bit of mozzarella, just a little bit.
Is that fresh mozzarella?
This is fresh mozzarella. Okay,
How
now
is fresh mozzarella different from regular mozzarella?
fresh is just the way the process. I don't know exactly. Well, I know it's but the fresh. I don't think it's been pasteurized because fresh has a very, very short shelf life. So when you buy it, you've got to use it up very quickly. Okay, and now what we'll do now is again we'll just cover this with some tomato sauce. See, it's almost the same concept as a lasagna, but not quite as many layers. And it's easier to divide, you know, make vegetarian and non-vegetarian out of. Just a little bit more, not too much more. Again, this you're just eyeballing this in. Okay, there's a pretty good eyeball. Okay, now I think I had about half a cup. Now you just spread this cheese again. I think I had about half a cup. Okay, then I had the mozzarella. And again, this is fresh mozzarella. And I think I had about looks like I had a 8 ounce. And it looks like I'm pretty much going to use the whole 8 ounces. Okay, now that goes into a 350 oven for about 20 minutes. We'll check it after 20 minutes, okay? Into the oven we go.
Go.
All right, it's been 20 minutes. Oh, and it is just golden brown. That's just what we're looking for. See how that is? It's just a little toasty on top. That's just perfect. All right? Okay. Now, in the real world, you should probably let this cool about 5 or 6 minutes. But I'm sort of hungry. I think I'm going to go right now. So, you just very carefully take, see how this works. Oh, look at that. That worked. Okay, that was a carnivore. Now we'll do the other one. There we go. All right. So, what I would suggest now is that if you're going to serve this with a meal, the advantage of this is that you could make it the day before. And then you put it in the refrigerator, and then you could cook it the day before if you're busy. All right, to serve this, probably the easiest thing to do for just we call it anti-pasta plate, and that is just a plate of like salami, pepperoni, cheeses, artichokes, mushrooms, whatever like that. Then you can serve that with maybe with just a green salad. Then for dessert.
So you put all of that on your plate? You serve all of that together on the plate?
Oh, no. You just serve it like an hors d'oeuvre. You would serve the antipasta as an hors d'oeuvre. And then, then your salad, you can have a salad plate or put it next to this. I just use a salad plate. And then for dessert, traditional Italian dessert is tiramisu. But that'd make a pretty long day out of it to make the cannelloni and a tiramisu. So an easy dessert would just be, just buy some gelato. That is very, very Italian. So anyway, hope you enjoy this, and be on YouTube, and give us a like.